let's jump into it. So we are going to discuss today some important insights into different pricing strategies, their pros and cons, and which ones might be right for your business. And then also how to maximize your profit during this time of inflation and a lot of change. AOF is proud to support entrepreneurs through access to capital and these educational resources like these webinars. We're super grateful to our partners at Global Atlantic Financial Group for sharing in our commitment to small businesses and helping us bring this webinar to you all today. In addition to Global Atlantic, I'd also like to thank some of our promotional partners, including Branch Food and SIVA in the Boston area. So before we get into our full discussion, I'm really excited to introduce you to both of our panelists today. First, we have Beth Ann Dahan. Beth Ann has over 20 years of experience working with small business owners. In conjunction with her work as a business coach, she works in the food and beverage industry as an entrepreneur and educator. She has owned 2 successful small businesses in Massachusetts, and Beth Ann speaks both French and English. Hi, Beth Ann, happy to have you here. And then next, we have Viridiana Ponce. Vidi has provided training, coaching, and consulting services in both Spanish and English to over 1,000 entrepreneurs since 2014. She supports clients in developing financial projections, managing finances, accessing capital, and strengthening their food operations. Vidi draws on over 15 years of accounting, finance, food, and entrepreneurial experience, and her mission is to empower, enrich, and educate her community. Hi, Vidi, thank you for being with us. All right, so we have clearly got the experts, we've got the topic, and at this point, I'm gonna go ahead and turn it over to Beth Ann to get us started.
Thank you so much, Brittany, and welcome to everyone. We're really excited to be here. As Brittany said, I've been working with small businesses for many years. It's really my passion. I'm also an entrepreneur myself. So as we go through the presentation, I will try to add some examples of some of the things that I've been through as a small business owner, and I know Viri will do the same with many of her clients. So without further ado, I think we'll dive right in. So I want to just start out with just talking about what is a pricing strategy. What does that mean exactly? So basically, it is a methodology that a business, small or large, uses to sort of set the prices for their products and or their services. And basically, a price is what you charge for your product or service, and the pricing strategy is sort of how you come about with that method of what that amount should be. It's very important to choose an effective pricing strategy. It will help you reach your business goals. It will help reach the proper target customers that you have, and it also can build trust with your customers. So what we want to get to today is coming up with a winning pricing strategy for your business. So with a winning pricing strategy, it really showcases the value of your product and services. It convinces your customers to buy your product or service, and it gives your customers confidence in your product. Now, if you have a weak pricing strategy, it's not going to really reflect the actual value of your product. It might make your customer uncertain about your product. So if you price it too low, they might think it is cheap or not worth buying. But if you price it too high, they might think you're trying to gouge them. So you have to be really careful. It's a fine line that you have to walk, and it might target the wrong customers. So if you have a particular demographic in mind, you have to make sure that you are setting a really strong pricing strategy.
Beth Ann, can I add something?
Absolutely.
To that last slide? I love that we put in there that it gives your customers confidence. We want to make sure that our clients, that they feel good right? That they feel like, yes, I made the right decision in purchasing your product or purchasing this service, because none of us want to feel like we made the wrong decision, right? Or that we like didn't spend our hard-earned money like in the correct way. So I also like to think about pricing strategy as part of our client experience, and that it could either enforce it in a positive way or it could have the opposite effect.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you, Viri. All right. So what we'd like to do today is go over 5 effective pricing strategies that you can use as a small business owner. Now, there are other strategies that you can use. Some of them are a little bit more appropriate for larger businesses. So we try to concentrate on the different strategies that are most applicable to small business owners. So the 5 that we're going to go over with examples and pros and cons. The first is what we call value-based or premium pricing. The second is competitive pricing. Number 3 is price skimming, cost plus pricing, and then finally penetration pricing. So I am going to turn it over to Viri now to go over the first 2 of these strategies.
Thank you, Beth Ann. Hi, everybody. So we are going to tell you what these strategies are, and then, like Beth Ann said, give you examples, not only examples that are on our slides, but also client examples, and talk about who is this best for. So the first one is the value-based pricing, and here we can think about perception, right? So what we're going to set prices according to what our consumers think that your product or your service is worth. And so in this example that we have here, we've got Starbucks, right? They've got great brand recognition and loyalty, and a lot of people associate the brand with high quality coffee, right? Doesn't necessarily have to mean that it is high quality coffee, but people do associate it with that high quality. And so people are willing to pay a premium price. So this strategy can work if you've got a product or a service that's very unique, or if you've got a certain type of, I like to think about either like small batches or techniques or a complex production, then you can definitely take advantage of this strategy. So I also have a client who has a bakery, and she's got a very particular style. She's got products that you can't find in the market in her city, that common. And then she's got beautiful presentation, and her products are delicious as well. So she's got this winning strategy, winning product. And we were reviewing her prices, and they were way too low. And we realized that with some of her items and more of the seasonal items as well, that we were able to raise the price up. And when she tested that, one of the things that I really loved is that she said she raised the price at one of her markets and no one batted an eye. And that gave her so much confidence, because people, in their eyes, it was worth it. So if you've got an item that's seasonal, that's very unique to you, maybe not readily available in the market, this could be a really good strategy for you to use. It's also important, I just want to add in here, that we understand who our client is, because it has to be aligned once again with your client experience. The pros, it could be that it makes your brand appear more desirable. You can get higher profit margins, but on the flip side, it could also mean that you've got higher cost of production and marketing. So we want to make sure that we are communicating with our clients about those special techniques or about that competitive advantage.
Yeah, Viri, I'd love to jump in actually with another client that I have, who's also a baker and makes wonderful products that are completely nut-free. And so she's really targeting a special market with her products, and definitely can charge a higher price, because it's something that, especially parents who have children with nut allergies, that's something that really is important to them. So another great example of where you can use this kind of pricing strategy.
Thank you so much. All right. Our next pricing strategy is competitive pricing. So this is where we're going to take a look at what is the competition doing. And this could be a really great strategy, but it has to be under the right circumstances. So if you're just starting out and don't have a great understanding yet of all of your costs, you want to see what everyone else is doing in the market, right? This could work for us. I would think that this could be a good strategy for items such as more like common items. So I think about the example that comes up for me is something like rice. So if you have a restaurant and you are serving a side of rice or chips, the cost of making a portion of rice is pennies, right? It could be really, really low. We're not going to charge pennies for this portion of rice or for this portion of, let's say, chips. So we can look at what is the competition charging, set your prices according, because it's not going to have that big of an impact on, on your overall strategy. And also I like to use this so I'm not spending that much time doing an analysis on something like rice or chips or something that's more like secondary to not our signature products. So could be a good way for us to get started. We definitely take a look at what the competition is charging with my clients. However, I would say that we don't want to use this as a long-term strategy if we don't really understand our cost, or we don't want to use this strategy for all of our products or all of our services either, because we don't understand what the cost structure is for those other companies. They might have some long-standing relationships with providers that give them a really great price on certain ingredients or on certain materials. So we don't know what their cost structure is, right? And we, as starting out, we may not have access to those great prices. So this could be something good for like secondary items, but not our long-term strategy. Beth Ann, did you want to add anything?
Sorry, I was on mute. Yeah, no, I would just reiterate what you said. And again, it can be a good way to set your prices at the beginning when you're first starting out. If you're really just not sure of your costs, you certainly don't want to price yourself out of the market. So it does need to be looked at, with a careful set of eyes. So, but I think your examples were great, Viri.
Thank you so much. And actually, I'm going to pass it on to you now, Beth Ann.
All right, so the next strategy that we'd like to talk about is something called price skimming. So this is basically a strategy where you might be coming out with a product that is truly unique and people are sort of waiting for it to come out and they want to be the first in the market to, to snag this product. And the best example that we have for this is Apple. So when they come out with a new iPhone, everyone wants to have that new iPhone. And so Apple can pretty much put the price at whatever they want because people are so desperate to have that product that in the first, 3, 4, 6 months, they can basically price it at whatever they want and people will pay for it because they want to have the best and brightest new gadget. And, I thought of another example of this. Normally this is a technique or strategy that would be used by larger companies like Apple with tech products and that sort of thing. But actually I have a friend who started a company that makes bags for carrying your skis. And he came out with this really unique product that nobody else had done, with that you could carry your skis and poles and sort of be hands-free if you were dealing with your kids. And so when he first came out, he priced it pretty high because people just thought this was such a fantastic product. Now, of course, once other companies, competitors competitors, started seeing what he was doing, there were copycat products that came out. So then he had to sort of adjust his price. And this is basically what Apple does too. So they come out with a fabulous new iPhone that has all these great features. Well, inevitably, you're going to have competitors coming out with like products, and then they have to sort of adjust their products. So again, it is a strategy that is often used with big companies, but small businesses can certainly use this as well if you have a product that's really in high demand and people are really waiting for it. So some of the pros of this strategy is it really allows a business to sort of maximize the profits through people who are buying your product first, or what we call early adopters. So, you can really sort of get lots of bang out of your profits right from the beginning. Now, some of the cons, if this strategy fails, you might end up with some excess inventory because maybe you thought people would be, more, there would be more demand for the product. And so, it could backfire in that respect. You really have to have a product also that really can justify the higher cost for the strategy to be effective. So again, it's a strategy that you really need to sort of think through. And Viri, I don't know if I know, again, a lot of small businesses, have difficulty using this, but I don't know if you have any other things that you can think about that would be to fall into this category.
I think that was a great example that you shared about the ski bag.
Yeah, great. All right. So the next category is what we call cost plus pricing. Now, this is a very straightforward, sort of simple pricing strategy. And a lot of small businesses will use this when they're first starting off. So basically what you do is you take your product, you figure out what the production costs. So, all of the different costs, whether it's materials or, production, anything that's going to factor into the cost of the product. And basically you decide that you're going to add, let's say 20% to the cost, and go with that price. So for example, a bakery, I know we've got lots of bakery examples today, but let's say a bakery is making pies, and it basically costs them in materials and labor and any other production costs to make a pie. It maybe costs $10, and they say that they'd like to make 20% on that pie, so they add $2 to the cost, or 20%, and they sell the pie for $12. So very straightforward, a very straightforward way to set a price. Now, the pros of this, you can, have pretty predictable profits with this. It's very simple to implement. Again, it's a very easy formula: cost, plus profit equals your price. The cons are that, especially in these sort of inflationary times where we're seeing a lot of fluctuations in prices, it might not be a guarantee to cover all your costs, because again, you're making estimations on the calculation of your costs, and labor might go up, a lot of the raw materials might go up, so it's a little bit risky. And then because of that, it can be hard to sort of change your prices when needed. So again, we have the bakery example, but this can be applied to any type of, let's say you're you produce clothing, so you have your labor costs, you have the cost of material to make a dress, and that might cost $20, and again you would add the profit margin that you feel is can be supported in the market. And Viri, I don't know if you have any other examples for this one.
I was gonna say, what I really like about this strategy, and I think that this is one that I work with the majority of my clients, is that it really makes us understand what our costs are. right? And really dive into what does it take for the production of it, or if you have services, right? I'm seeing that a couple of you are service-based businesses. So really understanding what's your cost structure, really understanding, what it takes to deliver a service or for you to be able to, make that piece of bread is really, really important. So regardless of what strategy you end up going with, I think it's really important that you understand what it takes, what those, what are those costs. And then I think what's great about this one as well is that we can use industry benchmarks to help us compare. And that could also be a really great reference for us to use when we're using this strategy.
Yeah, Viri, I think that's a really important point, especially when we're talking about service industries, understanding your cost structure. And Viri is, our financial expert here. So I think that's super important, because I think when you're trying to price a service, it can be really difficult because you don't have necessarily raw materials costs or things like that. You have to think about overhead. You have to think about technology costs. You have to think about, lots of different things. So, definitely, think about that, your cost structure. So I'm going to turn it over to Viri to cover the next couple.
Thank you. So the fifth, I think this is a fifth one, right now?
Yeah, it sounds right. Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so the fifth pricing strategy, we've got penetration pricing. And so this one is for companies that are attempting to push new products or services by offering prices that are much lower than the competition. I really like the example that we have here where, let's say, an online news service that offers 1 month for free, or a food and beverage company that offers a new product at a discounted rate so that it motivates people to try their products or their services. So the pros are that it allows people to either taste your product, to get a feel of what it would be like to work with you. And it gives people, I think it's a lower risk for them to start working with you. So this could be a really great strategy for services and for product businesses. I think that this makes sense for us if it makes sense with your cost. And if you are clearly communicating that it's either like a one-time offer or an introductory offer, or that it's a special pricing. So we're not creating false expectations. I've seen a lot of small businesses that fall victim to this strategy, and they don't get out of that intro pricing or that discounted pricing. And that we don't also want to go under with our business, right? Like, we don't have to always offer all of these like discounts or give, 1 month free of our services. So think about, the language and how you're communicating with your clients. If you're going to use this, I think it could be a really great strategy for those that, when we do have a unique product or a new service and we want to get, client testimonials, or we want to get just people to start working with us. Do you want to add anything else, Beth Ann?
Yeah, I would love to add sort of a personal example here. My husband and I own a wine production company. And when we first came onto the market with our wine, one of the things that we did is when we would go to stores and, it was a new product, they didn't know the brand. And so we would use this strategy by saying, well, if you buy, 3 cases, we'll give you 1 for free. And that was great. It was really a great way to, get our products into the market and, have people try them. But on the con side, it definitely, the stores got used to having these buy 3, get 1 free kind of thing. And, that became a little bit difficult. So, we had to do it for a while. And then, we raised it. For example, we said, well, okay, now, our products are actually really popular. Now you have to buy 4 cases to get 1 free. So there are ways to, adjust it as you go along, so that, you don't go broke. But it can be a really effective strategy, I think, especially for, packaged products and beverage products and things like that, and also the subscription products, sign up for 3 months and get one free and that sort of thing. So yeah.
Beth Ann, do you think we can also use this? There's a couple of people in the chat that are saying they've got some services or like consulting services. Do you think we can also apply this to a consulting business where?
I absolutely think you can. In fact, I see this a lot, with people who are offering, let's say coaching services. So, just what we do, coaching with small businesses, you could say, well, you get the first session free to try it out, see how it goes. And then, the next one would be paying. So I think that's a perfect example. I think the same would apply if you're, let's say, a therapist. The first session might be free, and then if you have the rapport with somebody, you would go on to offer the next one for the price that you would normally charge. So absolutely, I think for services, it's a great way to attract customers.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And once again, I just want to reiterate the importance of sharing and communicating with your clients that this is an introductory or a special offer. It's like a one-time thing. Make them feel really special for purchasing with you, but communicate that with them.
Absolutely. All right, so we've gone through all these different strategies. So now you need to figure out, what the most effective strategy is for your business. So as Viri mentioned before, it's really important to know your cost structure, what your financial data is, and be able to, price your products and services accordingly. So basically, we talked about some of these things. You have to know what it costs to produce your products or to provide your services. So again, if it's a product, that's going to be raw materials, labor, any other production costs. If it's a service, again, that's a little bit trickier to come up with, but there are, lots of things that go into providing your service. Like I said, technology costs, overhead, training, professional development, etc. You need to be continuously looking at these costs and be able to react if there are changes in the raw materials costs. And again, this is really important, especially in these sort of inflationary times where we've got fluctuation of prices of just about everything. You have to really know your market, your competition, and your customers. So how much are your customers willing to pay for your product? What are your competitors charging? Having a firm grasp and doing your research on all of these things is really important. And then staying on top of sort of emerging trends, supply chain threats. Everybody's been hearing about all of the supply chain issues that we've been having during COVID. So you have to have a really good understanding of all of those things. And also, what your consumer perceptions of your brand are.
I just want to add in there that I know it's easy when we are starting our business or when we're in our business to just focus on what we're doing. I know I will get into bubbles, but it's important to zoom out, right? So not only look at what are we doing, our cost structure, but what's going on in the world, right? What's going on in the economy, making sure we're reading, I think is really important, whether we're reading newspaper, signed up for articles related to our industry. So we understand at a bigger level what is going on.
Absolutely. And we'll do the next slide. And Viri, if you want to take this one.
Yeah, absolutely. So I see this so often that as small business owners, we start out with a low price because we think that that's how we're going to get clients. And that's not always the case. And so I just want to really share with you all that We don't have to start out with a really low pricing. It doesn't matter if you're just starting your business. You have to evaluate your cost, understand what's the perception of your product or your service, what's the value that your clients really they're getting from purchasing from you. Because I've seen a lot of small businesses get really, really busy in their business, and then they're not growing. And that's I would say like a common theme for people that come and do consultations with me is that they're like, Vidi, I'm busy. I've got clients, but I'm not growing. I don't see a difference from my revenue from year to year. And when we take a look at, and one of the first things I do, I'm like, all right, tell me about your prices. Tell me about what your costs are. And they're not getting sufficient margin. And so they're really busy and they can't get out of there. So I would say we don't necessarily always want to start with the lowest price, because we might be, like we mentioned earlier, you may be attracting the wrong clientele. Maybe you're attracting people that are looking for discounts or a different type of item that you're providing. I'm going to say when I started, a personal example is when I started my coaching business, I was charging way too little and I was always busy, but I wasn't growing and I didn't have the time to grow because I was so busy. So I had to change my pricing structure so that it made more sense with the value of what I was bringing. I also want to share I'm Latina, and most of my clients, 88% of my clients are Latinos, and I've seen that a lot of times Latinos or people of color that we charge way too low. And I also think about a lot about what impact that has on our community or as in our industry as a whole. That, and I think about services like janitorial services or a product like a tamal that's a labor of love. It's complex. It may not cost that much to make, but it's a complex production, and not everybody knows how to make these items. That if we start out really low, it's impacting our community, and the prices we're making our prices like as a whole for our industry, like we're keeping them really low. So this strategy of like starting out with low prices, it only makes sense if you have a really great cost structure and efficiencies in your business. So
yeah, and I'd love to add, I find I've done a lot of work, and I'm sure you have too, Viri, with women-owned businesses. And I think women tend to undervalue themselves. And I can even speak from experience on this. I owned a cafe and catering business with my brother. And I was always really hesitant to put our prices too high. I'm like, oh, that's too much for that sandwich or that, catering. We need to get the business. We need to price it. And I have to say, my brother was not at all like that. He was like, no, we need to come in with this higher price. And, so I learned that, the hard way, that he was right ultimately, because I was always, scared to sort of put the true value on the thing. And he was like, nope. This is what we need to charge. And so it was great. It was, I will give him credit for, but I think it often happens with women. I have found that a lot. So
I feel like it could be really scary putting yourself out there.
Yes.
Right. Yeah, I can
Whereas
definitely.
men don't have that problem. Men are like, this is what I'm worth and this is what I'm putting out there. So yeah, it was good.
Yep, absolutely. I think for that, it's really important to go back to what is the value of the product and the service that you're providing, and even testing out your product or your service beforehand and hearing from the people that you're actually serving, because that can give you a lot of confidence as well. So yeah, not
Absolutely.
Always the best strategy. Yeah. Do you want to take that, Beth Ann? Or?
Yeah, so this is one of the things that we really wanted to address because it is such a topical issue right now. So inflation, the elephant in the room, and we've touched on it a little bit as we've gone through the presentation, but everyone's talking about inflation. Everyone sees it. You see it in the grocery store when you go out for your weekly shop. You see it at the gas tank. you know, everything has increased in price, you know, and this is a result of lots of different factors. We had 2 years of COVID. Now we have, you know, the war in Ukraine, and they're just, you know, supply chain issues, and there's just a myriad of things that are happening to cause these highest prices. And, you know, unfortunately, you know, you as small business owners, you know, you've got this sort of double whammy. You just, you know, went through 2 years of COVID. You know, that was incredibly difficult. And now, you know, we're dealing with inflation. So it's, you know, we've seen raw materials go up. Again, supply chain issues have been, just making things really difficult for small businesses. And at the same time, wages have also increased. We've got a shortage in the labor pool. People, you know, are doing different things after COVID. They don't want to go back and work at the minimum wage job. So service industries especially are just having a really hard time. And we recognize that as business coaches. We know that this is something that's happening. So there are some things that you can do to sort of get through these hard times. And we can see some of those on the next slide. So Viri, do you want to take this one?
So that's why it's so important that we are setting, like from the onset, that we're setting prices that are going to give us enough cushion or margin for us to be able to absorb price fluctuations. And here's a couple of things that we can do to help us out with that as well. But I really think that's why it's so important that we do think about pricing as part of our client experience, that we take the time to really understand what things are costing us, so that when prices do change or these costs are increasing, then it's not hitting us so dramatically. So a couple things we can do. We can cut expenses where possible. So in here, we could think about eliminating any like unnecessary expenses or eliminating any products or services that aren't being used. I also like to think about, like, we don't have to offer everything that we have in, you know, all of our products or all of our menu or all of our services if they don't make sense for you right now. So I'm going to say, don't be afraid to maybe remove some of those items from your current offerings, maybe those items that have higher cost productions. So one of the examples that I can think of, and this was like pre-pandemic, the cost of avocados, right? There's been like certain issues in, let's say in Mexico, like price wars and, you know, with the avocado, and it's driven the price of avocado in the US like really, really high. So I've seen what I saw a couple of years ago where that restaurants weren't even offering like guacamole because they would have had to price it at a ridiculous price for their clients. Their clients were, you know, we're going to pay for that. So I would say, don't be afraid to take things out of your offerings as well if they don't make sense to you right now. You can also take a look at stocking up supplies to avoid further price increases or supply issues. I've got clients that last year, when there was a lot of issues with the jars, with the jar situation, that they decided to pre-order some of those jars so that they wouldn't have to change all of their stickers, all of their labels, their sizes. And so we did that so that they were able to maintain their inventory. So that was something that really helped out. You can also think about applying for a business loan, raising capital to invest back into your operation. So buying things in bulk could be a really great way. And then ramping up marketing to attract new customers, or purchasing technology or equipment that's going to help us find efficiencies or increase that efficiencies in our business. Do you want to add anything else, Beth Ann?
No, I mean, I think you covered it. I mean, I think especially on the, you know, the office space question is something that really sort of came to light during COVID, you know, when everyone went remote and started, you know, they might have had a brick and mortar store, or maybe they had an office space and they went remote. And then they sort of decided, well, maybe I don't really need that expensive office space, or I don't need, I can sell my products online. And so, it's all tied up. And so I think, a lot of that happened organically. And now that, costs are so high, it makes sense to continue that. So I've seen that a lot with clients.
Yep.
So a few, different strategies that you can, use during inflationary times. I think that, oftentimes the knee-jerk reaction for businesses is, my costs went up. I have to, increase my prices. You really have to be careful about this, and you have to really do it very judiciously. So you don't want to just, raise your prices so much that your customers are just going to be completely turned off. If someone is used to going into their local coffee shop and paying, $3 for their coffee, and all of a sudden it goes up to, $4.50, you're going to turn a lot of people off. So you really need to think about, you might want to, raise prices slowly. So, just in modest increments, and be very strategic about which products you raise prices on. So maybe, you have a product that, and I think Viri gave a great example earlier of rice, in a restaurant that costs absolutely nothing to make. Don't raise your price on the rice, because you're already making a huge profit on that product. But other products you might want to think about raising the prices. So you don't have to raise prices across the board. Again, really know what your cost structure is, know what things cost, and what the profit that you can pass on. You can also pass a lot of cost increases through what we call secondary or tertiary items. Again, just what I was talking about with the rice, they're less price sensitive. And on the key value items, so rice, stay competitive, don't raise the price on that. And also choose areas where customers are maybe less likely to notice. So again, for coffee shop example, maybe don't raise your price on, the sort of basic just cup of coffee, but raise the prices on the specialty, frozen, all the different kind of, specialty drinks. Maybe raise those prices, because those, customers are probably willing to pay more for those specialty drinks. But the person that comes in just for their, basic cup of coffee, if you start raising that price a lot, that's going to be more problematic. You can also offer, extra services or rewards for subscriptions. So maybe have, loyalty cards, things like that, different ways that you can get people to, subscribe or, buy in advance, that sort of thing. Viri, what would you add to this?
I would say that I know it could be scary to increase prices, but we need to be realistic, right? And not go underwater as well. And so I know a lot of times we try and hold out, but I think it is important, as we've seen prices just increase so dramatically, that we do make some changes, and they could be incremental changes, not all across the board. But I think it is really important that we're realistic, and that it's a way of us taking care of ourselves and our business. So I know it's scary, but I think it's really important that as our costs start increasing, that we do find opportunities to provide more value to our clients, but also raise our prices.
Absolutely.
So another thing that we can do, and this goes along with like adding value to your for your clients, is bundling different products or bundling different services, so that you're offsetting some higher prices and the higher costs. So if we continue with that example of the rice, what you can do is maybe do a rice bowl. And if you're adding some of the proteins in, maybe the proteins the costs have increased, but the rice really hasn't changed that much. So you want to make sure that you are bundling items so that you're spreading the cost. I also think, with thinking about how do we strengthen our relationships with our clients, is also really important. I think that this could be a really, really great time for us to build like deeper relationships with with our clients. During the pandemic, all businesses were affected, right? And I think some of the things that I saw some businesses do was get closer to their clients, really understand what do they need, meeting them where where their clients were at. So I know sometimes we want to focus on more clients, but if you're an existing business, you can think about, you've already built trust with some of your clients, and maybe they need or want more services, or they want more of your products. So think about how you can serve your existing clients better. And I think it also makes sense during these inflation times, because we have to invest less in selling to existing clients than what we do in getting newer clients. So I'm going to say this is an opportunity for us to get closer and really understand what our clients are looking for. And then, it says shifting your marketing tactics. You might need to position a product differently to justify the higher price point. Once again, it's our pricing strategy is part of our client experience. So we have to make sure that we are communicating our value, communicating, I would say what they're going to get out of it. Because that's something that's really important, is perception, what they're going to get out of it. And we have to over communicate with our clients.
Yeah,
Anything
and I
else?
think, I would just add on the marketing part. I know during COVID, a lot of my customers who had never really used social media very much before to communicate with their customer, the fact that they weren't seeing their customer, especially people who had, previously had brick and mortar businesses, really sort of using social media and their website to really communicate more with their customers, and develop that customer loyalty, and then people, if they feel like they know you, and if they feel like they really respect your business, they're willing to pay a higher price, because they know that you have a good business, they value what you're doing, and they're willing to pay that slightly higher price. So just some concluding thoughts as we come to the end. One thing that I think really want to stress is that many business owners will rotate and change strategies over time, or blend different policies. It's very rare that a business would just say, okay, I'm going to use cost plus pricing, and that's all I'm going to do. Most businesses will use a combination of these different strategies, depending, you might use one strategy when you first start out. You might change that as your business becomes more successful. So that's really important. Don't think that you have to pick one strategy and stick with that. You really need to use a combination. Again, even within your business, one product or one service might call for a different pricing strategy than another product and service in your business. So you really have to look at those specific products. It depends on how many products or services you have. So mix and match within your business. And oftentimes it'll just take some trial and error. You will have to experiment with the strategies and see what works for your business. You might try one strategy and that just is not working for me. So think about, employing another strategy. So don't feel like if once you pick one that you're stuck with it forever. And again, when in talking about inflation, again, the knee-jerk reaction is to raise prices, but make sure you also look at cost cutting, bringing in efficiencies to your business before just, again, raising all your prices. Cost cutting can, be a really good thing to do first before you go to the raising of prices. What else would you add, Viri?
Those are such great points. I just want to echo that we can use a combination of these strategies. I typically do that with most of my clients, is that we take several into consideration, and then we adjust them over time. Right? I know a lot of people, they're like, when do we do this? Or what's the percentage? It's going to depend on your business. It's going to depend on who your clients are. But I think it is important that we are taking a look at, our numbers, our cost. And what I just want to add in here as well is track your costs. track your prices and have a good system for you to record this information, whether it's a point of sale system or whether it's an accounting system like QuickBooks, and review your numbers on a monthly basis so that you can make informed decisions, right? So it's not only about, the prices, we have to make sure we're tracking and understanding what those numbers are. And like you said, Beth Ann, like, we're allowed to test them out. We're allowed to experiment. And it usually takes some time for us to figure that out. So talk with your clients, talk with potential clients so that you understand, get their feedback in terms of what you're offering, what the value is, what they think about your services or your products.
Absolutely.
All right, that's awesome. There's been so much good activity in the chat because I think all of this information and knowledge has just really sparked something in folks. So I'm going to go back and ask a couple questions to you both. But while I'm doing that, I've seen a lot of really specific questions about, your specific business or really trying to target what you need. And I would love to say that we can cover all of those today. I don't think we'll have time to, but the great news is Beth Ann and Vidi are both coaches for AOF. You can sign up for a one-on-one free coaching session with them. I'm dropping the link in the chat. And so please go ahead and use that. There's a lot of topics you can pick from. We have a really good broad range of coaches, but if you want to dig in a little more to this topic and get some one-on-one advice, please check that out. Okay, so in terms of questions, one question that popped up a couple of times is we talked about raising your prices incrementally. How often can you do that? What is a natural flow for that, especially during inflation time? And I'll pass that to Viri.
So I'm going to recommend, like I just said a couple minutes ago, take a look at your finances at least once a month. Now, I'm not going to recommend that you increase your prices once a month either, because that would probably turn a lot of people off. But I would say we want to review our pricing and our costs and make adjustments once a quarter. However, if you're rolling out a new product, you have that opportunity to update the pricing. If you're going, let's say, to a new farmer's market that's outside of the usual farmer market that you go, that also gives you the opportunity to raise the prices. If you're going to be in a new market, if you're now selling online, if you're offering a new bundle, then you can raise the prices. So I would think of it's not only like on a periodic basis, but also if you're entering into a new market or with a new product. Beth Ann, do you want to add anything to that?
No, I think, just we can't say enough about, really understanding your costs and reviewing your, financial situation on a very, very regular basis. And I think it's impossible to say, how often you can raise prices. You really just have to, evaluate on a month-to-month basis. And as Viri said, if you raise prices every month, you're probably not going to get a great reaction. So, yeah.
Awesome. Okay, and another question I'm seeing is when you do raise your prices, how should you communicate that to your customers that your prices are raising? And I'll start with Beth Ann.
Yeah, this is a really good question, and I've seen businesses do different things, especially during COVID and especially during these inflationary times. I often will see businesses really be very upfront with their customers. If they have a brick and mortar store or let's say a restaurant, they will, maybe on their sign or some place in the establishment, they'll say, we're sorry that we do have costs to cover and we've raised our prices. We're hoping it's not permanent situation, but we are trying to, run a small business. And so I think, honesty is the best policy. I don't think, on your website, you don't want to have a huge thing that says, oh my God, we've raised our prices 20%. You might turn people off. But so it really depends. I think if you do have again, a brick and mortar place of business, sometimes, to be honest, again, it depends on how much you've had to raise your prices. If it's a very small amount, you probably don't have to communicate it with, so much information. Viri, what do you think about that?
I was going to say it depends as well.
Yeah.
Because a couple of things come up for me that sometimes we feel like we have to justify ourselves for increasing the prices. And also, I don't know if we always need to do that. I think it's going to depend. I've got clients, for example, one of my clients, she's a dog walker, and she hadn't increased her prices in years, right? And so we drafted up a sweet little message to send out to her clients, her existing clients, and tell them that she was going to adjust the prices in a couple of months, giving them the heads up. But we didn't do that like on her website or for new clients, and new clients just came in on, with this new pricing. So I think it depends on what type of business you have, what type of relationship you do have with your clients, but also don't feel that you have to justify your prices all the time. Sometimes I think about bigger businesses that they just increase their prices and we don't question these big businesses. But I also think communication is key.
Yeah, I think that's a great point that you make about, communicating with existing customers. So I think the dog walking is a perfect example. I know, the place where we take our dogs to board, that's exactly what they've done as well. They emailed, their existing customers and said, we haven't raised our prices in, X number of years, this is what we're doing. But for new customers coming in, the price is the price. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a super, super point, that, communication is key, but more so with your existing customers than newer ones. Yeah, great point.
Awesome. And then I'm gonna go ahead and switch the slide, but we do have one final question I'd love for us to touch on, which is, you've mentioned talking about looking at, like, kind of looking forward, forecasting what could maybe affect your pricing or whatnot. What resources are available for folks, or where should they look to kind of help them plan for these price adjustments? Oh, and I'll go to Beth Ann.
Okay. Again, it really depends on what kind of business you're in. I mean, if you're in a business where, you're using lots of raw materials and that sort of thing, there are obviously, industry specific websites that can talk about, maybe some forecasts of increasing prices on raw materials and things like that. I think with, service industries, that's a little bit harder to sort of forecast. Viri, what would you add? I can't think of any specific resources except for, again, industry specific things, especially with raw materials. Those there are, you can, look at trends in pricing and, economic forecasts, et cetera, on those types of things. But
yeah, my suggestion was also we have to dive into our industry. And once again, going back to look like zooming in and zooming out. So I would suggest that you read articles related to your industry, that you're part of different newsletters, different groups on whether it's online or in person. One of the places that I go to get industry specific information is IBIS World. If you have access to your local library, most of them have access to that database. And that those industry reports can provide so much great information and benchmarks. But I think learn as much as you can about your industry, because you're going to start, learning from other folks as well. And that's also really important, that we're talking to other entrepreneurs who are in the same world as we're in.
Yeah, absolutely. And, there are places like, get on the newsletters of, different industry specific organizations. If you're in the food business, the National Restaurant Association, for example, is a great resource. They are always on top of trends, everything from food costs to labor costs, et cetera. So, stay on top of all of those. If you work in the beauty industry, there are different industry specific organizations that track those type of things. So do your research on your particular industry, and find, be in contact with other people in like-minded businesses. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh my goodness. So there's so much good information, and we tried to pack it into an hour, and we got close. But please, everyone who's joined us today, thank you so much. So much good conversation in the chat. Want to share just one more opportunity. We are running a grant opportunity. So if you have a product-based business, please check it out. I will also be emailing out the recording, other resources, grant opportunities, how you can get in touch with Vidi and Beth Ann after set up coaching sessions, and some other resources, because someone mentioned earlier, this is just a piece. So we want to be able to support you in your entrepreneurial journey. So thank you, Beth Ann, thank you, Viri, thank you everyone who joined us, and we will see you soon. Bye, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Gracias.